Let me know.
3, 2, 1.
All right, so we go back in and they're having a closed court. Well, they're meeting without the jury. And this is over, as I talked in the last update, about the article that the gentleman writes that is called United Police State. And they're arguing over what's going to be allowed from that article to be entered. And they agree that one sentence is going to be allowed. And at some point the judge says, because the lawyers are arguing that his state of mind of why he went down is relevant. And the judge says, I do not see why the state of his mind is relevant to why he came to the assault. Now she calls it an assault, not a protest. And like I've been saying, they've been trying to keep the word protest out. All of the people who are testifying have been told, you can tell, they've been told to avoid certain words like protest, and they've also been told to use certain words like, this is BLM, police officer, ranger, law enforcement ranger, BLM law enforcement ranger, what was it? What did they call the other ones the other day? Every single person, though, regardless of who, it's like park forest, law enforcement officer.
They've been trying to equate land management agents with your typical local law enforcement.
They actually look like military, though.
Yeah.
Well, they were all in the Secret Service, basically. BLM agent come in that wasn't previously in the Secret Service protecting the president, so that was interesting. But I think it really does say a lot when the judge herself says it's not relevant to why he came to the assault. And, you know, she's been helping the prosecution all the way along. One of the days, she actually, while they were having the witness testify, was looking up case law to help the prosecution keep something out from the defense, right?
Yeah, she provided defendants or defense with case law to show why they shouldn't be allowed to admit certain evidence. That's the job of the U.S. attorney, not to an impartial judge. You know, she's using her judicial discretion in a way that's particularly egregious in this case. We're going to see more of it in the next few weeks. You know, back to what Andrea said about the use of the word protest. That is really suppressed in this trial. People are allowed to reference protesters, but they are not able to categorize what happened on April the 12th as a protest. Today, Alex Ellis, toward the end of his testimony, he was allowed to introduce the word standoff. He characterized what happened on April the 12th, the protest. He characterized it as a standoff, to which the U.S. attorneys replied, and they referred to the standoff. So the judge can call it an assault. The U.S. attorneys and their witness can call it a standoff, but defendants cannot call it a protest.
And that's what we're up against upstairs, and it's really frustrating. So we get right back into cross-examination on Alex Ellis, and they are going to allow that one sentence from his article, The United Police State. And Leventhal starts, you stated that the video was one of the reasons you came. You said that Mrs. Bundy was in the video and she was standing in front of a truck and then she was tackled to the ground. So then he brings up he shows him his article to remind him what he said in his article. And in his article, I believe he did not say that he was standing in front of a truck.
Don't tread on us, baby!
Right. Thank you! But that she was grabbed around the neck and thrown to the ground. And so that was allowed in. Then he was asked how many times he had met with the FBI. And that was 3 times. One in St. George, one in Salt Lake, and one here in Vegas. Then he was asked how many times did you meet with the U.S. Attorney's Office?
U.S. attorneys.
And I didn't get how many.
He met with them at least twice. 3 times. Just recent, obviously yesterday, today, yesterday. Prior to that, I think back in January, and then another time or 2 before that.
Exactly.
So he's had 3 coaching sessions with the U.S. attorneys. Is what that boils down to.
And the last one was Stephen Myrie in January. He was asked if he was pointed out people and asked who they were, if he was given names, and he said no. I was asked if I recognized certain people, and I would say yes or no.
Our BLM agent on the stand today, his name is Logan Briscoe. He was in charge of the security detail surrounding the incident command post. He had about 10 people subordinate to him. They had 4 positions that they manned. Post number 1, we've talked about off the southbound lane, just past the Tocop Wash. Post number 2, which was under the southbound bridge. They also had something they called post number 6, to watch your 6, watch your back. That was north of the incident command post. And the video that we saw, the aerial surveillance up on the mesa, just east of the wash, it's really high elevation. We were able to see vehicles and personnel. We found out today that that was their observation post for the operation. This
LPOP, which is Lookout Post Observation Post.
Logan Briscoe is essentially, Pete Santilli is on trial now. The Bundys have been given a rest for a few minutes, and now Pete Santilli is on trial. We're seeing extensive video from him and some of his interaction, which is very cordial, actually, with Dan Love and some of the other BLM agents. He is testifying that things that Pete Santilli said on his radio show caused him concern. It raised alarm. And the only thing that Pete said was, I think Americans should come to the Bundy Ranch. And he potentially said maybe they should bring their guns, neither of which is unlawful. And that's why this case is so important, is because this is an assault on the First and Second Amendments. They are trying to criminalize our lawful exercise of these rights. And the way that they're going to do it is they're going to allow the court to rubber stamp a scenario where you go to protest. They'll characterize it as an assault or a standoff, and they'll say that because you were there lawfully exercising your rights, you are now part of a giant clandestine conspiracy that dates decades back from people that you've never met and that you never knew. And that's why this case is particularly dangerous. Regardless of your opinion of Cliven Bundy, regardless of your opinion of any of the defendants, Tier 2 mid-level organizers, Tier 3 gunmen, that's the words of the court, all of them were protesters. It was a protest start to finish, and they are allowing witnesses to characterize this as criminal activity. That is specifically why this case is a constitutional watershed, and why everybody watching these updates should read about it, should study it, and understand what's happening, because it is going to affect all of us if this goes the wrong way.
Another thing that was brought up, some of the video they're showing of Pete Santilli is off of this officer's body cam. And one of the questions, and you know what I see the government doing here in this case that I'm seeing, is they're bringing forward everything, because I believe in Oregon they tried to hide a lot of stuff and it bit them in the ass, right? So here they're trying to throw it all on the table. So here the government asks him, well, was your body cam always recording? And he's like, well, no, I loaned it out to other officers at times. Well, but if your body cam was on your body, was it always recording? Well, no, it wasn't. But it was recording, but he had turned it on for this this conversation between Pete Santilli and Dan Love. So here we have another defendant that is testifying to a conversation between 2 people who are not in the courtroom. And that was brought up by Leventhal. He said, you know what? You can bring, Dan Love's available. He's not deceased. You can bring him down here and we can have that conversation. Of course, the judge doesn't want to say it. She says, well, all we're talking about now is why he raised the threat level. And this conversation between Pete and Dan Love helps him raise his threat level, and that's how we're bringing this in as evidence. And this is going on and on upstairs, one time after another. You know, our defense lawyers are saying hearsay, you can't do that. And she's like, no, it goes to someone's state of mind. They're hearing this conversation, it goes to their state of mind of why they did something else. But then when we say hearsay, it's overruled.
So you got 6 defendants upstairs who had presumably never met Pete Santilli. Pete Santilli had never met them. But because he is labeled as a co-conspirator, and conspiracy is the friend of the government, by the way, because he is a co-conspirator in what they are describing as this conspiracy, everything that he has said is admissible against these defendants. And presumably, when Pete Santilli sits in the courtroom for his trial, right now he's on trial and he's not even there to face his accusers, when he does sit in front of a jury, presumably the statements of other people that he had never met, the actions of other people, the lawful actions, I'll take it to that point, the lawful actions of other people that he had never met, and they had never met him, those will be used as evidence against him because they're all co-conspirators.
Okay, I have one other thing to bring up about Alex Ellis. So when Jackson got up, you know, he did this chain of custody on the videos that Flynn's videos. And he was asked if he had the videos in his possession. Apparently, Michael Flynn and himself did meet with the FBI in 2015. I believe it was May of 2015. Now, Michael Flynn did commit suicide in November of 2016. He said that, you know, Michael had these. He had given a copy to the U.S. attorneys, and then he was asked if that was the only copy, if he gave them the original. And at that point, his answers got really short, and he said, to the best of his knowledge, I believe, and that the tapes that were in his custody, to the best of his knowledge, were not edited. So what we have here, we have someone entering evidence that is not their own. They do not have the chain of custody of this evidence, and they cannot prove that it's not edited.
And they didn't have it for over a year.
And they didn't have it in their custody for over a year. So, you know, I don't see how this is going on inside, and I think Jackson did a really good job bringing it up.
Jackson, who was Greg Burleson's attorney, absolutely pounded the chain of custody issue. It was a very good, well-reasoned argument. The government really tried to confront every defense attorney. They objected to a lot of cross-examination for Alex Ellis. Jackson was absolutely able to get a lot of questions through about chain of custody. I think it was very effective.
And one of the things Eric's lawyer Jess was able to get in is that Alex did hear over the loudspeaker that they were the word lethal force they were going to use lethal force. And he also said that it was very hard to understand what they were saying on the loudspeaker. And I think that is huge, especially in our people's case, because they were up on the bridge where Alex was standing. So a lot of his testimony is actually good for us.
Did you mention that the witness that's on the stand, Alex Ellis, recognized somebody down there that he said was a child who actually had a beard?
Yes, Michael Flynn was trying to get recordings. He was obviously there upset about the children we watched. He said it over and over again. So he's back on the bridge at this moment, and he's like, there's kids, there's armed kids down there. Do you see these armed? Get a picture of that armed child. Oh wait, that guy has a beard. We'll get that one in the red coat. Like, tweet that out immediately. And he is saying this as he's recording this. So you can't tell me that these videos aren't biased.
And there was never any evidence of an armed child. They quickly skirted past that.
That armed child was a grown man with a beard.
Yeah, it was a grown man with a beard. The last thing I have is Logan Briscoe, the BLM ranger that's on the stand right now. He said his concern was raised over the words of Pete Santilli. He specifically said, well, Pete told people to bring weapons. And to me, a weapon is something that you use to harm somebody. And that's why that raised my concern. Those were his quotes directly. So we got agents that again are testifying that they were in fear because citizens were going to act lawfully, basically.
Let's just play the video.
And he came in uniform.
Yeah. He did show up in uniform. He did.
Let's just play the video. Like Pete said, to bring them, if you're able to, lawfully and legally.
They've presented no evidence, and I don't think it exists that Pete Santilli did anything wrong.
Well, it's after 1 o'clock.
Or any
Except for
of
one.
the defendants that are up there right now. We haven't seen we've seen no evidence that anyone up there did anything wrong. In fact, one of Pete's words is, no violence will happen.
Right.
You have my word. And I heard that in the courtroom today, and guess what? Even today, on April 12th, no violence happened. Can anyone say any violence happened? One of the things that I was from yesterday, and I didn't get it out there, but Todd's cross-examination of one of the BLM agents, he said to him, now, were you hurt on the day of April 12th? And the guy says, no. And he said, well, was any other BLM officer or law enforcement officer hurt on April 12th? And he said, no. And he said, were any protesters hurt on April 12th? He said, no. And he said, well, then I guess you could say that the only thing heard on April 12th was the BLM's feelings. And the entire jury laughed.
The BLM gets
You have never seen the U.S. attorneys jump out of their skin so fast to object to that statement.
That was a pipe
It was
bomb.
good. It was good.
Of course, he just turned around because he knew that was coming. He just turned around and walked back to his seat
Like a boss.
like a boss. Big smile. That's why we love Todd. That's Engel, Todd Engel.
Todd Engel said the BLM got
Thank
fired.
you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, so that was our lunchtime break. They got to go back in right now, and we'll have another update when everything's finished for the day.
Andrea?